20 years later, we still vividly remember the day we'll never forget.
But a jet just crashed into the World Trade Center.
On September 11th, 2001, two hijacked planes crashed into the Twin Towers in New York City, eventually causing them to collapse. Phone lines jammed as people reached out to loved ones, asking if they were okay or telling them to turn on the TV.
I'm so worried about you. Where are you?
I just need to know that you're okay, sweetheart, so please just call me.
Two more planes were part of the attack on America, one hitting the Pentagon. Another, United Flight 93, crashing in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, while on its way to Washington. As the fateful day's events unfolded, the president was in the Bay Area visiting an elementary classroom in Sarasota. The moment he was notified, caught on camera.
Mr. President, are you aware of the reports of the plane crash in New York? And is there anything?
Most people remember where they were that day, and many had connections to the nearly 3,000 lives lost. But together, the entire country united in mourning, and 2 decades later, America still stands strong, remembering and honoring those we lost.
Thank you so much for joining us this morning. It is Saturday, September 11th. I'm Melissa Marino. This morning, it is hard to believe it is the 20-year anniversary of one of the deadliest days in American history. In New York City, this is where the World Trade Center used to stand. You're taking a live look of Ground Zero, where the towers fell. A memorial is now set up there dedicated to the victims of the attack, as well as the first responders who lost their lives trying to save others. Meanwhile, in the nation's capital, this is a live look at the Pentagon. Today, Washington, D.C. will shine a blue light into the sky in remembrance. You can see them there. Now, similar light tributes will also shine in New York City and Shanksville, Pennsylvania. And in the Bay Area, there are also multiple events happening to honor the victims of the September 11th attacks. 8 on your sides, Christine McClarty is joining us now live from the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office with more on the events happening there. Good morning, Christine.
Hey, good morning, Melissa. Today, the Sheriff's Office is hosting 2 events to honor those almost 3,000 lives lost on September 11th, 20 years ago. Take a look just behind me. You can see they're starting to set up for the event that starts at 7:30 this morning. That's going to be a wreath-laying ceremony taking place at the September 11th Memorial here. Sheriff Chad Cronister and the Sheriff's Office Honor Guard will participate in the tribute. The Sheriff's Office is also holding a ranch run at Temple Terrace Elementary School. This year's theme is Never Forget. It starts at 6:45 this morning, and the national moment of silence will be recognized at 8:46 this morning in remembrance of all those lives lost in the terrorist attacks. Now take a look at the events happening around the Bay Area today. At 6:45 this morning, the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office Ranch Run. 7:30 this morning, the wreath-laying ceremony. At 8:46 this morning, Tampa International Airport is hosting a moment of silence. And at 9 o'clock this morning, Tampa Fire Rescue is hosting a remembrance ceremony. And here are 4 more. At 9 o'clock this morning, the Hillsborough County Fire Rescue is also hosting a ceremony. At 1 o'clock this afternoon, there's a Highlands County Memorial. At 5 p.m. tonight, Winter Haven is hosting an Honoring Our Heroes ceremony. And finally, at 6 o'clock tonight, Sarasota is having a 20-year commemoration ceremony. Live back here in Tampa, the flag is at half-staff, honoring almost 3,000 lives that were lost today 20 years ago. Again, this wreath-laying ceremony starts at 7:30 this morning. For more details about September 11th tribute events happening in your area, go to the free WFLA app. Reporting live in Tampa this morning, Christine McClarty, 8 on your side.
And we'll check in back then at 7:30. Thank you, Christine. Now today in Palm Harbor, hundreds will visit the 9/11 memorial lights symbolizing the World Trade Center. It is the only 9/11 light memorial in the state of Florida. 8 on your side spoke to people paying their respects there on Friday. Castro told us she was working in the World Trade Center the morning the towers fell. After the first plane hit, it took her more than an hour to get down the stairs and escape. She started the journey with her friend, but her friend ended up stopping on the way down.
She got tired and she wanted to rest, and I told her we can't rest, we have to get down the stairs. Going down the stairs, I felt like I had an angel on my shoulder.
Koster ended up with some broken toes, but her friend did not make it out. The lights at the Palm Harbor Memorial, they turn back on tonight from 8 to 10. Well, all day long, 8 on your side, we are looking back on the events of 9/11, as well as its ties to the Bay Area community. Be sure to join us tonight at 7:30 for We Remember. We'll have stories from survivors, first responders, and more. Again, that is tonight at 7:30 p.m. right here on News Channel 8. Well, 9/11 was the first national disaster of the digital age, allowing people to reach out to others in real time. We'll be listening back to voicemails from that day, giving us an inside look at what happened. Stay with us. You're watching News Channel 8 today. Welcome back. One of the best accounts of the events of 9/11 are through the voices, the excruciating sounds and memories of those whose lives intersected on that morning. NBC's Lester Holt takes a look back at the September 11th attacks, a day that for so many began with the ring of a telephone.
Turn on the TV.
It's Stacy calling. I know it seems weird to call you, but a jet just crashed into the World Trade Center.
It's how the story of that day began for so many. A call from a friend, a relative. You have to see this.
A plane has just crashed into the World Trade Center.
I'm so worried about you. Where are you?
In a world without Twitter, we reached out in the only ways we could.
I just need to know that you're okay, sweetheart, so please just call me.
We were witnessing the first national calamity of the digital age. Every voicemail, every email was writing history's narrative in real time.
It's the human experience of a historical event. And your point of entry is that this event happened to people, just like you and me. They were people who went to their offices one morning with a cup of coffee and sat down at their desk, and literally all hell broke loose.
And so in the 9/11 Memorial and Museum's oral history exhibit, it is the voices of those everyday people weaving the story of that day.
Message 5 from an unknown number. Received September 11th at 8:59 a.m.
Hey, Beverly, this is Sean. In case you get this message, there's been an explosion in World Trade 1. That's the other building. It looks like a plane struck it. It's on fire at about the 90th floor, and it's horrible.
Sean Rooney called his wife several times from the 105th floor of the South Tower.
This is Sean again. Looks like we'll be in this tower for a while.
Like so many that day, Sean Rooney didn't make it home. Those who died and those who escaped the buildings are part of a painful mosaic. Judy Ween also worked in the South Tower. She survived.
It was pitch black. I went to get up, but I was literally walking over bodies. So many people just died at that moment.
Bruno Dellinger recalls passing firefighters as he evacuated.
While I was walking down, they were going up to their death, and I was walking down to live.
There is also the remarkably calm flight attendant Betty Ong on board hijacked Flight 11.
And the cockpit is not answering their phone, and there's somebody staffed in business class.
She was giving critical information.
We have voicemail today, but we don't use it like we did back in 2001. How critical are those snippets in telling this bigger story?
Those voicemail messages are so important because we can hear what was going through their minds and through their hearts.
Jules, this is Ryan. Lives on an airplane that's been hijacked, and things don't go well. It's not looking good. I just want you to know I absolutely love you.
And we are not spared the crushing heartbreak of final goodbyes, like the message Brian Sweeney, a passenger aboard United Flight 175, left for his wife.
I want you to do good, so happy to time. Same to my parents and everybody, and I just totally love you. Hi, babe. Hope I call you.
Images of 9/11 are seared in our memories, but what was heard and said and what we remember and share will always take us to that day and closer to those we lost.
Welcome back. 20 years ago this morning, American Airlines Flight 77 slammed into the Pentagon, killing more than 100 people and injuring hundreds more. Washington correspondent Trevor Shirley is live there now with a look at today's ceremony. Good morning, Trevor.
Melissa, good morning to you as well. Later on today, family members of those who died and some survivors will be here at the Pentagon. They'll be joined by U.S. officials and other dignitaries, including the president, all to mark the 20-year anniversary of these attacks. This morning, as the sun broke, a flag unfurled over the Pentagon's west side. 20 years after smoke from the Pentagon blackened the skies over the nation's capital, those who lost and those who survived returned to remember.
I hung up the phone, and just as I turned around, the plane hit.
On Thursday, people who were inside the Pentagon and survived looked back on that horrible day.
And the plane came through the C ring right beneath our office on the opposite side. And so there was rocks and debris, and I thought the windows were going to come in on top of us. Fortunately, they did not.
President Biden will arrive here this afternoon after stops at Ground Zero in New York City and the crash site of Flight 93 in Shanksville, Pennsylvania.
The president felt it was important to visit each of these 3 sites to commemorate the lives lost, the sacrifices made on a day that has impacted millions of people across the country, but certainly many people in those communities.
Elsewhere in Washington, memorials were held earlier this week at the FBI, the Department of Justice, and a private ceremony for Pentagon employees. And the Pentagon's also illuminated a Tower of Light memorial that officials here say they'll keep on through tomorrow morning. That's the latest here in Washington. Melissa, we'll send it back to you.
Live, this is News Channel 8 Today on your side.
This morning, we are marking the anniversary of the worst terror attack in American history. 20 years ago today, hijacked planes crashed into the Twin Towers, the Pentagon, and a Pennsylvania field. Thousands were killed, and the lives of everyone who lived through that day changed forever. This morning, as we look back on that terrible day, we are honoring those who lost their lives and the heroes who paid the ultimate price trying to save others. Meanwhile, a wreath-laying ceremony is about to get underway at the September 11th Memorial at the Sheriff's Operations Center in Tampa. Sheriff Chad Cronister and the Sheriff's Office Honor Guard, they will both be participating in that tribute. You can stream the entire ceremony live on our website, wfla.tv. And here's a look at some of the other memorial events happening across the Bay Area. At 9 this morning, the Hillsborough County Fire Rescue, they're having a ceremony. There's a Highlands County 9/11 memorial dedication. That's at 1 p.m. near the Hammock Road Fire Station. At 5 p.m., Winter Haven is hosting a Freedom Walk. And at 6, Sarasota is having a 20-year commemoration ceremony. Now, September 11th, 2001, it was already setting up to be a day for students in Sarasota that they would never forget. President George W. Bush was coming to their school. But as 8 on Your Side's Keith Kate shows us, after a whisper, that visit was cut short and everything changed.
These second graders at Emma E. Booker Elementary School in Sarasota, Florida, had no way of knowing they were about to become part of history.
Before, obviously, we started reading to him, we actually had a conversation with him.
Lazarus DeBrock, now an engineer living in Texas, was just 7 years old when he met President George W. Bush. The commander-in-chief came to his reading class. Lazarus recalls the president being in a good mood.
It was a nice piece of like personal brevity to meet the president and have him talk to his daughters and actually his 2 dogs that he had at the White House.
But things changed quickly when the president's chief of staff, Andrew Card, whispered in the president's ear.
We're reading along, and in the middle of our reading sections, it was Mr. Carr who came in through the side and ended up notifying the president of the attack.
This is the most serious attack on the United States since Pearl Harbor.
It was a Tuesday morning. Terrorists attacked the World Trade Center, the Pentagon, and attempted to crash a plane into the White House.
Our teachers tried their best to kind of shield us from the information.
President Bush also did his best to remain calm, protecting the students from the media, just learning about what was happening.
Mr. President, are you aware of the reports of the plane crash in New York? And is there anything...
Even as a boy, Lazarus sensed the gravity of the situation. Could his school be next?
The president was at our school, right? So what better target than the elementary school that the president was at?
With the president right now.
Minutes later, News Channel 8 broke the news to viewers in Tampa Bay.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a
difficult moment for America.
Lazarus says it took time, years really, to comprehend what happened. He remembers his young self, his happy routine going to and from school until September 11th, when his innocence was shattered.
And then that one day comes in and you're made aware, not only is America possibly being dragged into a war, it's a war on our soil.
Every year on the anniversary of the attacks, Lazarus reflects on that horrific day. 20 years later, he knows it has forever changed him. He hopes for the better.
I don't feel proud to be a part of a day that ended in the lives of thousands of Americans. But as I mentioned before, what I can do is I can take away lessons, even if it's the slightest silver lining to that day, of what can I do for myself to improve the lives of those around me and the lives of those I care about.
And Lazarus graduated from Riverview High School. He studied engineering at Columbia University in New York City and is now a project engineer in Houston. He's been reliving this memory for 20 years, but he's found a silver lining in the tragedy, motivating him to help others to never take life for granted. Some of the first responders who were at Ground Zero on 9/11 now live here in the Bay Area, and that includes former NYPD officer Fred Mack. Mack came out of retirement to volunteer in the aftermath of the attack. He spent 10 days working to identify the victims. He now lives in Pasco County. For him, this anniversary brings back memories of the way people came together.
I saw the city of New York become one. Everybody became one. People were helping people. There was a lot of civilians that were going back in the building to bring their friends out.
Mack keeps this shadow box in his home to remember the people lost that day. And as New York marks 20 years since the terror attacks, a tribute is lighting up the sky to honor the victims. Stephanie Samani is live in New York showing us how folks are preparing to mark this milestone. Hey, good morning.
Hi, good morning. Less than 30 minutes. Family, city leaders, politicians, they will all gather and hear each of the victims' names read out loud. Then tonight, a touching tribute will light up the night sky as we remember and honor those victims today and every day. Just south of the 9/11 memorial, every flip of the switch done manually to create two beaming rays shining into the night sky. Its beauty honors the lives lost and symbolizes the strength of New York City, the tribute in light.
Thank you for joining us on a beautiful September morning. Not unlike a glorious September morning 20 years ago this week. I wanted to come to this site for reflection, to pay tribute to those lives we lost, to thank the first responders.
Earlier this week, the governor of New York, Kathy Hochul, and former Mayor Michael Bloomberg were at the 9/11 memorial. The pair laid a wreath to honor the victims.
We have an obligation, number one, to have a place for the families to grieve. Number two, to have a place to educate our population as to what happened and how we can prevent that from happening again. And number three, as a center point for the rebirth of New York City.
The tribute in light is organized by the 9/11 Memorial Museum. The twin beams reach 4 miles into the sky and are made up of 88 7,000-watt xenon light bulbs positioned in two 48-foot squares. The beams mirror the shape and orientation of the original Twin Towers. They illuminate the city, echoing the enduring spirit of New Yorkers and echoing the mantra, never forget. Now, President Joe Biden already here in New York City. He plans to attend the ceremony. He also plans to attend the one at the Pentagon in D.C., as well as one in Pennsylvania. His press secretary said it's important for him to go to all three crash sites today. Live in Jersey City, Stephanie Simone, back to you.
Amazing to see that light tribute. Stephanie, thank you. Well, be sure to join us tonight at 7:30 for We Remember. We will have stories from survivors, first responders, and more. Again, that is today, 7:30 p.m., right here on News Channel 8. Just after 7:45, welcome back. It is a solemn morning in New York City where many will look up and remember where the World Trade Center used to stand. You are taking a live look of Ground Zero where the Twin Towers fell 20 years ago today. A memorial is now set up there, dedicated to the victims of the attack and the first responders who died trying to save others. An FBI agent based here in the Bay Area was among many called to the towers that fateful day. In 2001, Michael McPherson was an FBI drug agent in New York. He and all other FBI agents rushed to a command post at the bottom of the towers. That is when they noticed people jumping out of the building. He says those people likely saved their lives.
We would have stood there at the bottom of that tower and that would have crumbled on top of us. They pushed us back, and in their sacrifice, they saved us.
McPherson also remembers that before 9/11 terrorist attacks, they weren't on people's minds. But after that day, it was like living in a different world. And after 20 years, the medical examiner's office in New York City still identifying victims of the 9/11 attacks. Just this week, using new advanced DNA technology, they identified 2 more people. Dorothy Morgan, an insurance broker, and a man whose name has not been released to the public. With 40% of the victims still unaccounted for, there is still a long way to go.
We made a commitment 20 years ago to identify everyone, and that commitment is as strong today as it was 20 years ago.
And for the man in charge of testing those DNA samples, that mission is personal. He was at Ground Zero when the South Tower came down. His ripped jacket from 9/11, as you see here, hangs in the lab as a reminder that there is still work to be done. Well, time right now is 7:55. We have some cool weather pics to show everyone.
Yeah, we did have a really nice sunrise this morning. This is what it looked like from Clearwater Beach. George sent this to me on my Facebook page. And yes, we have some clouds in the sky, but sometimes that's what it takes to get some colors on the horizon. And then we show this one again from Gordon Silver saying we will never forget September 11th, 2001. A nice picture of the flag there and a bald eagle. And yes, today is a somber day. We will never forget. Thank you for that picture there, Gordon.
Yeah, absolutely. One final check on the forecast.
Yeah, we do have the clouds in the sky now, and I do think they're going to stay in the sky for several hours at least, and that'll hold temperatures for most spots in the upper 80s. If you get some peaks of sun, you could touch 90 degrees or so, maybe even a little bit warmer than that. Nonetheless, it's going to be humid. We've got a lot of moisture in the air, so stay hydrated if you're outside today, especially at all of the events that we have going on. Rain chances today at a 30%. Some light rain possible, especially as we head through the morning hours. Couple of scattered storms possible this afternoon. I don't think it's going to be anything like what we've seen the past couple of days. Tomorrow, though, we're back in a very normal pattern. Rain chances go up to a 40%. See some scattered activity inland that will drift back toward the coast as we head into the evening.
Okay, so the weather not so bad for a lot of the 9/11 events happening today. We have a full list of those on our website, wfla.com. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Our next newscast tonight at 6. We're going to get one final look at Ground Zero as we leave you on 9/11. Make sure to tune in this evening, 7:30 p.m. for our special coverage